Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast, Tuesday, October 9th, year 2018. How is everybody doing? It's been some time since I've spoken to you through this feed. Just the same old, well, not quite the same old. I'm in one of those times, and I don't know if anyone else does this, where you just rip open and try to change as many things as you possibly can. We can't change our lives in the sense of where we live, who we're married to, what kids we have, and I'm not saying I want to change those things at all, but as a human, there is just a feeling sometimes of when you get stuck in a rut, when there is a stasis, and all you really want to do is break that up a little bit, because the human mind wants diversity. It just wants some kind of changing of the guard in your life. And so I will often, maybe it's once a year, maybe it's every 2 years, maybe it's every 6 months. Let's be honest, sometimes it can be every 3 months or even less, just how your mind is running. And you get into a point where you get to a certain age. I'm now 36, and there are only so many things you can change. You can't really flip the script on your life completely. Well, you could, but there's a lot of risk inherent in that. And risk is totally good. It's fine. It's sometimes necessary to get through to the other side, whatever that other side is for you. But you do need to always take into consideration those things which you do have to look out for when you're talking about your family, when you're talking about having a child who's growing up in a certain place, when you're talking about having a home and all that comes with that, and all of the expectations you have with that about growing older in it and what you do there. And there are really only so many things which you might jump out of that situation for. And when you have those responsibilities in your life, you can't just jump at anything. It can't be the single me jumping to a job with the Nets 11, 12 years ago. And look, if that came about again, it would be something to jump to. I mean, that is actually the one situation, just as it was back then 11 years ago. When I jumped to the Nets, that was the one job I would jump for, because I was happy professionally with what I was doing, and there were just a couple of dream positions which you would go for. But I often think about, even now, would I jump to a sports job, for instance? The nights are common. The weekends are common. Being away from your family is common. The travel is tremendous. Being paid or getting paid to be at an arena and cover what they would say is a children's game is an unbelievable honor. And it's something that is great, because it's that truism where you never feel like you are working. You're just doing what you love. But I often think if that would work in my current circumstances. My family has gotten used to having me home at night. And while I might want to be out on the road much more, while I might want to be covering sports, do you even reach the point there where you feel like if you were in that position for, let's say, a year, and all you're doing is writing about sports for a website, do you feel like you're missing too much there and you need to change that up? It's always tough. And I fall prey, as many people who contemplate on their life constantly do, I fall prey to paralysis or analysis paralysis, where you think so much that you don't do anything. But maybe thinking so much is doing something. And coming out of that, being in a place where you've almost thought yourself into being in a new lot, being in a new job, being in a new location. And just that very thought, just the idea, I remember they used to always say, basketball players, great basketball players, would visualize the game that night. They would visualize themselves hitting shots. They would visualize defending somebody, so that when the actual game came to be, it would feel like they'd already done it, which would almost give them an inboard advantage in the game. And I think sometimes when you visualize where you can be, it's exciting, but I don't know sometimes if that analysis paralysis makes you think yourself out of it. So you almost got the opportunity to live in it in your mind, and maybe that was enough. But I do find myself often getting disenchanted with the day-to-day. I'm not as excited coming into a weekend as I might have been at one time. And I'm not saying that's because of what I'm coming home to. I love my family. But maybe it's because you're not doing exactly what you want to do during the day anymore. And being able to integrate the things you want to do on the margins of the day, on the margins of your week, is not enough. But it's tough. I think you almost reach a professional midlife crisis, not the old life one that you get in your 40s with that dip that happens about, have I done enough? What do I have left? How much more time do I have left? Even though we have plenty of time left, hopefully, God willing. But you reach it when you're in anything for as long as I've been in the position I am in now. So it's always tough. But in the little things you can do where you can change things up and have a new reality, I am doing that. So I actually went ahead and canceled the gym I've been at for the last year. I've been at Planet Fitness. And unfortunately, when I was starting into this mania period of wanting to rip up certain things, I had actually jumped from a single club membership, which is only $10 a month. It's an amazing deal at a Planet Fitness. To sign up with one club is $10 a month. And then when I'm in this situation where I have this gym membership thing, and if you go 12 times, you get $20 back, I'm actually now making $10 a month to go to the gym. And this gym is right across the street from where I work. So for a year, I've done that, and I've been great with it. It's been fantastic. I had gone on lunch breaks, and it was hard to leave work in the middle of the day to go to work out and feel like you're sneaking out. You don't want to sneak out and have someone say something, but you feel like you need to do it. And I was having trouble getting up early to work out. I never like to work out at night. So being able to work out in the day was great. So I would sneak away for an hour. But a couple of things came to a head. Towards the end of the summer, there was a day where I was out by Rockaway, New Jersey, out near where I live, and I wasn't going to make it into work because at this Rockaway Mall is one of the places where the OBGYN for my wife and her pregnancy has one of their offices where they do the anatomy scans. And so I got out of there a little late. I called into the office and I said, look, I'm just going to kind of work from home, work remotely out here. Doesn't make sense to drive all the way in at this point, the amount of time it takes to get in, to only then leave a couple hours later to come home with all the time it takes to get back. I could get a lot more done here. And so I decided at that point, well, this is a workout day. I have my stuff with me to work out because I was going to work out at lunchtime at work. And then I remembered there's a Planet Fitness right around the block from that mall in Rockaway, New Jersey. And if you upgrade to a black card, which is still only $20 a month, so if you go 12 times a month, which you could easily do, you are now even on your payment. You're not paying anything to go to a gym. It's a great deal. And when you get up to that $20 time, you can get the massage chairs they have, you can do all that, and you can use any Planet Fitness pretty much, I think, anywhere in the country. So it's a tremendous deal. And for that one day, I was like, I'm going to do this because I'm right over here. I'll go and do my workout, come back to the mall, get a post-workout meal, get some coffee, and continue to work. And so that was great. So I did that. And then I just kind of decided that, you know what, I want more. And I want to get a little nostalgia back in play. And I've been a serial dater of gyms. I will keep many gyms at a time. So I used to be at New York Sports Club up here in the New York area. And I was at New York Sports Club from the time I was about 16 until the time I was about 25 or 26. And then since that point, I have been dating sports clubs like it's going out of business, like I'm having a midlife crisis. I've gone to every gym in the area, and then I eventually talked myself out of it for one reason or another, whether it's price, whether it's I'm just not getting there, and we bulked up the gym we have in the basement in our house enough to the point where you're good with it. But I always want to have the gym, and I always think myself into getting back into a gym or getting out of it. And so at this point I said, you know what? I want to get back to the old nostalgia play. I want to go back to New York Sports Club. And there's a New York Sports Club, not amazingly close to where we live in Sparta, but there's one about 20 minutes, an easy 20-minute drive to Butler on Route 23. And the thing I liked with the New York Sports Clubs is they have a pool, they got saunas, they have towel service. When you take a shower in the gym, they got the body wash, the hair, the shampoo, the conditioner. They have it all there, so you don't have to go bringing all your stuff with you. And there was just some luxuries that I had forgot about, and then I really enjoyed the basic things. And I thought to myself, well, when I drop off my son Liam at school at 8:15 or 8:30, sometimes it pushes that way, I can then just drive instead of going to Cloveberry and having my coffee and reading for 45 minutes and then going in a little later after the traffic to work. I can go to one of these locations along the way to work and make working out work for me during that period of time before work. And I would still get in at the same time as if I went to Cloveberry. So I could go back up over the mountain by our home to the one in Butler, or I could go to the one in Livingston, which is right along Route 280 there, I think between 280 and 10. And I could do that, and then I'd be in a good place, and I can still get my gym visits. And the other thing is, New York Sports Club has come down in price a lot over time. They're now a $40 a month if you're locked in for a year to go to any New York Sports Club in New Jersey or in Rockland County. Used to be New York City. It's annoying they don't do that anymore, because that was kind of cool when I went to college there, and you could just go to any gym. So I like the fact you can go to like all these gyms. You can use a pool. You can have all the amenities with the locker room, which is great. And really, it was the pool. And then if you think of some of the other gyms, they have basketball. They have just a lot of options you can kind of play with there. And I was really interested in the pool aspect, because in the summer I'll swim when you go to people's houses, and they have the 12-yard pools, including my parents. My wife's cousin Jamie has a pool, but it's not something you do kind of religiously or on a regular routine. And I really wanted to get into that, because one of the other reasons I thought about jumping is, if anyone remembers from my episode almost a year ago now, I just had a brutal back injury, and I still don't quite know what it is. I've just tried to put it off. I've tried to not go to the doctor to get the actual prognosis, and it's gotten better, but at its best, it's maybe 85% of where I was before that. I always had a tight left back, but whatever happened to my thoracic whatever area in the spine, it was brutal, and it was out of control. And I often thought it was maybe partly to do with the grief of the miscarriage we had last year. And then I thought it was maybe doing an exercise when I shouldn't have, and it was just awful. Felt like I broke my back. That first month was I was debilitated. I couldn't do a thing. I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't really work out, which meant I didn't really eat. It was not a good routine. And I slowly got myself back, but it's always there. It's always there, lurking in plain sight. So even if I get up to that point where I'm 85%, that 15% is still there. And on days where I do something maybe a little too heavy, or I do something that tweaks it, and I still don't know what it is that can tweak it because I don't know how to get to it, it's always there. Then it can feel like it's 60% of what my back was, and it's tight and it's painful, and I feel like I can always stretch it out, and it doesn't happen. So I decided, hey, why don't I try to mix up the gym for that? I had that back injury within the period of time that I was at that Planet Fitness. Maybe it's the closed circuit machines that they have. Maybe there's something that's just continuing the injury from healing. And so with all that said, I said, let's jump in. So I broke up with my last gym, and I'm back in New York Sports Club. And I even last weekend took my son Liam up to my parents' house in Mahwah, the old house where I grew up in, because Melanie was going to be away at a marching band event for the entirety of Saturday. I took him up to Mahwah, and my parents graciously took him for much of the afternoon, so I was able to go back to the old gym I would go to all those years. And it was amazing walking around in there. And it was amazing 10 years later, all the same faces that are still in that gym. Now, that's a suburban location. It's people who are set in their ways where they're going to live, so they're probably not going anywhere. But it was weird. It was weird going and looking in those basketball courts, and there were the same people I would play pickup basketball with 16 years ago, 17 years ago. And there they are. And they all look the same. Maybe that's the beauty of what a gym can do for you. But I kind of did that, and I'm really trying to integrate swimming more into my routine here. Swimming is just a magical exercise. It obviously doesn't put any stress on your body. It's not playing with gravity, but yet it's 100 times the resistance of gravity. So you're kind of getting some real, I guess you'd say, anaerobic and weightlifting aspects out of it. But man, it's a hard workout. And when you get good at it, which I'm still not great at, I can still only go one way down, have to stop, take a bunch of breaths, then go back the other way. It's a nice challenge, because I'd love to get to the point where I can be like these other people in the lanes who are going down, turning back around, flipping back around, and just going back and forth and back and forth. But I think because I'm so inefficient at it, that I'm probably getting a better workout than other people. And so my plan is really to try to do the swimming maybe twice a week even. Hey, if I'm getting crazy, I went in there today, I dropped my son off at school, and I had to look at the traffic. It was not looking good to get to Livingston, so I went back up over the mountain to Butler, Got in there and I did a nice 30-minute swim workout, continual. Ended up at about 30, 31 laps. So, 30, 31, 25-yard runs, which is a pretty solid pool length. And I felt great. Got out of there, took the shower with all the amenities, all the towel services and the hair stuff and the body wash. I got in the car and got to work. And I'm really interested in trying this because I got to get this back thing figured out. It is just really, it's a little scary how it just hasn't worked itself out. And I don't know what I'm doing that is causing it to continue. It's just one of these things that doesn't make a lot of sense and doesn't have a lot of, there's not two things that I can do where I know it's going to tweak it. It just tweaks. You wake up the next day and there's just an issue. So I'm really going to try with my 2 workouts in the week. I always work out 2 in the week and then the 2 weekend days. That's typically my workout. So I'm going to try to go all in on swim on the Tuesday and Thursday workouts. And then I'm going to do my normal weight work and running and stair stepping, whatever I can do with that, basketball. So kind of the weight bearing, running-ish workouts. I'll do those on the weekend. And let's see where we go. And if I could intersperse some yoga in there, that would even be more magical. It'd be great if I could do like a Wednesday yoga. I don't think that's going to work out with timing because you just don't have time anymore. And that's really what you need for your health. I'd love to be able to put in 2 hours at the gym every day and like an hour of it just stretching, doing yoga, just getting in your Zen zone. Oh man, I would just love it. But you can't do it as much. So I'm back in the gym. I'm enjoying it. New York Sports Club. Probably go back up this Saturday with my son up to my parents. I do feel a little guilty kind of giving him over to them and being a bachelor again. But hey, that's kind of what the parents are for sometimes. They don't get to see him as much, so they're excited for that to happen. The other thing, I'm just going crazy. I'm deciding whether I want to cut out magazines. I'm deciding whether I did decide actually that I'm out of Spotify and I jump back into Apple Music, even though initially when I sign up for a music streaming service, I'm into it and I try to pay attention to it and focus on it and use it. And then over time, it just goes away. I end up using podcasts. I end up listening to Sirius, and I end up just doing stuff like that before anything else. So I did jump over back to Apple Music. And what led me there, it's funny, it works. So The Verge had a best streaming music services column. And even though Spotify came out number 1, there was Apple Music. And if you remember with Apple Music, if you have an email address from when you went to college, you can get a student discount. So that ends up being $5 a month. That's like a 50% savings. That's really good. Now, the only issue is the reason I had gone back to Spotify is because they had this bundle that they released. So you can get Spotify and Hulu for somewhere around $10 to $12 a month. Hulu is very important for me at home, not even for myself, but my son gets a lot of viewing pleasure out of Hulu because it's got all these Thomas the Train movies. It's got all the Curious Georges and various other things. And the beauty with those is even though being in this Spotify Hulu bundle, all you are allowed to get is the Hulu with commercials bundle. But that's only for primetime shows. When you go back and watch these Thomas Train movies, or if you go to watch Curious George, there's no commercials. So it's really been a beautiful setup. So I was losing that, but I figure, hey, let's jump into Apple Music. Let's get the watch back in play with music, because with the new Watch OS, I think it was Watch OS 5, with that new Watch OS, the watch became available now for a lot of things to be stored on it, a lot of audio to be stored on it. Apple Music has always been able to be stored on it, but in this update, podcasts came into play to be stored on it. Now, for whatever reason, Spotify, maybe it was a monetary reason, maybe the payoff wasn't there, the reward was not there to go all in on doing it. Spotify did not give the ability to send music to the watch. And I've always talked about the fact all I worry about is what I can do with the watch on a run, even though I don't run outside more than, 8 to 10 times in the whole year. And even on those 8 to 10 times, I end up bringing my phone anyway. But all I imagine and all I dream of, my wishful thinking is I just want to go for a run with my watch, and that's it. So GPS on the Watch 2 and up all can mean that you can run with that watch without having to bring a phone, because in the past, the first watch, you had to do that. You had to have a phone with it for the GPS. But 2 and up, it was GPS, and now there's a lot of things that can be natively stored on the watch. But Spotify was not one of them. So I said, hey, let's just change things up. Let's do it all. I'm breaking up with my gyms. I'm breaking up with my music services. And really with the music services, who cares? Like, I can just go back to Spotify next year and it won't matter. So I'll probably want to break up with Apple Music. But I jumped back in Apple Music, $5 a month. Now I can get the music on my watch natively. And I did that. But then I got to figure out the Hulu part. But I already saw, it's like Hulu knows what happened. I already saw the remarketing in my Facebook feed that they have a $5.99 Hulu deal. So that'll probably be for the year. That will be with the limited commercials. But again, that's worked for me for the kids shows that I need to show without commercials. Because kids these days, they don't understand what commercials are. It throws them off if they see normal TV. So yeah, I've been doing that. And I think I'll, once this Spotify Hulu thing runs out, which is in like 2 days, I'm just going to probably jump into that $5.99 deal. And now I'm going to be no worse for the wear. I'll be $5 and I'll be $6. So I'm looking at $11 a month. Not too bad. And I'm decoupled from the bundle. One of the neat things with that bundle though, so this bundle mimics a bundle that came out first for students. So if you were a student, you could get this Hulu with limited commercials and Spotify. Since then, they've thrown Showtime into that existing bundle. So if Showtime gets thrown into the bundle I had, which was like the $10, $11, $12 a month based on when you had it, that is a really, really intriguing mix. Now, of course, I take Showtime from my parents' house. I get the Showtime app and I just put their credentials in for their cable and I get it. So I'm already getting it. But that is an intriguing little play there, what people can do with bundles at the frugal level. But I'm going to kind of hang with that. So I'm dangerous right now. I'm just breaking up with things left and right. I'm getting rid of podcast feeds that I haven't listened to in a while. You know, you kind of have these fall cleaning, these spring cleaning periods where you think that you're going to break up everything and it's going to open up channels in your life and you're going to find a new you. And you never end up finding a new you. I always love the saying, everywhere you go, there you are. And that's not a negative. I like who I am. But we try to do these little moments where we break it all up and see if that diversification almost like an icebreaker breaks up a path for us to move through. Now we know what climate change is doing to ice, so it's a little of a different thought, but when actually icebreakers were something that you could look at. So the other crazy thing in my household, I feel like this is an ongoing topic on this podcast. It is wildlife in my home. So last week, God, was it only last week? Yeah, I think it was last Tuesday. I believe it was a week ago today. My wife gave me, I saw my phone ringing at 5 a.m, my cell phone. It's from my wife. Never a good thing when your significant other is calling you that early in the morning, especially when they're in the same house as you, because they're not going to call you to say, hey, I forgot my hairband or something, or I forgot my, I forgot my earphones. Could you bring them down? That would be rude. They're going to call you if there's something crazy. Much like when I was in Austin, Texas at the airport, or I was at Houston at that point, and my wife called me at 4 a.m. Central Time to tell me there was a flying squirrel running through the house. So pretty much the rule is if she's going to call me before 5:30 in the morning, there's wildlife. And so 5 a.m. comes around, I'm getting the call. I'm really woozy. I'm getting thrown out of sleep. I get my CPAP machine off, and she says, Matt, it's back. And back in May, I believe it was May 30th from the timestamp of the picture, a chipmunk went running through our recessed ceiling above our finished basement. And then near the window well where the little gym we have is, my wife is about to get on her Peloton bike. And this chipmunk bore a little hole above that window, which is maybe 8 feet high. It's pretty high up there. Jumped into the little window well, saw my wife. She yelled, it jumped back up and ran out. And after that, we brought our pest control company in, and I've come to realize it's not pest control anymore. When you get to these animals, you have to call it wildlife removal. So there's all of these distinctions which I'm not aware of, and I've become aware of, and I don't want to be aware of. I don't want to be running a pest control company, basically, which I am. So the pest control company came back, and I found the hole where I thought they were coming in. It's amazing when these guys come to your house, and they cannot find it themselves. I know I have a pretty big house, but I think you can go around and pretty obviously find something. Sometimes it's like they don't want to find it. And I need this fixed. I don't want to have this nice house and have wildlife running through the house. That is just like skeevy. That's like a haunted house to me almost. It's like knowing there's ghosts and waiting for them to come around. And so we had plugged the hole that we thought was there. And the only reason I stopped worrying about it was because the chipmunk never came back. Nothing came back into our basement. We never heard anything again. Cue to last Tuesday. My wife calls me, it's back. And I go downstairs, and there it is. It's little hands or paws or whatever it is trying to dig through the tape that I had put over the hole that the last one created. I was supposed to stitch that up with real drywall or whatever, and in my true fashion, I had not gotten to that. I am just not a hands-on handyman at home. I got the stuff from Amazon to patch it up, and I never did it. Maybe it's for the better because they would have gone through apparently anyway. But there it was. It was trying to go through. So I took this dowel I had, which I had to actually clean the treadmill. You know, before I had the current treadmill, you had to get that stuff where you put the goo on it and you put it along the treadmill underneath. So I put this dowel. It was a perfect fit into this hole, and it stopped. And I was making all this noise, yelling. I just didn't want it around. And so by closing off that route, the chipmunk kept running around. You could hear it going around the recessed ceiling. You could hear it. And my thought of what happened here is we're now getting the darkness coming at a different time than it has been as we come to the end of summer, as summer's over, and we're getting towards daylight savings. And these chipmunks maybe are thrown off a little. So maybe somehow it got back in through a hole, which is freaking me out. And it got back into this place where previous chipmunks were. And it's running around like crazy. And it's dark. It's really dark. I mean, we're talking like not full moon, you know, that you can't see anything. And my wife probably went down at 5 a.m. and turned the lights on there for the first time. And this chipmunk that was up there saw daylight through that little previous hole, and that's where it was trying to get out. So it could not. We kept it shut. But then we're hearing it running around, and I'm freaked out. I am paranoid. I am at my wit's end because I'm tired. I haven't gotten my sleep, and I can't cope or deal. I can't deal with this in fair weather, my friends, because I'm just not into this. I'm not a mountain guy like this. I mean, who wants to deal with animals? But some people aren't bothered by it, so they do deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I just want the problem gone. And so we're hearing this animal running around in the attic, running around. Then we hear it jump into the unfinished parts of the basement by like where the water heater is and where the furnace is. And then it's running around making all this noise, going crazy. And we're trying to stuff towels under the doors so it can't get out. But where's it going to go? And now we're thinking, if it's going to get out, it's going to now go through and not where there was not an existing hole to try to get out as the light comes from the outside. I don't know what to do. I'm freaked out. So I've decided I don't want to have the pest control company I had. So that's another thing I did. I broke up with the pest control company. Now this was not for a change for no reason. This was for, I've had enough. They can't give me answers. They're telling me they don't cover chipmunks. Sorry. And it's just like, I just can't take it. I just can't. I just need to get back to my life where my house doesn't have intruders in the form of wildlife. I need to get back to my life. And so 5:30 a.m., I start looking up stuff and I come upon the fact, as I said earlier, that it's called wildlife removal. So I just start calling everybody who removes chipmunks. I found a bunch of providers. One based in Parsippany, one based, which ended up looking like it was based in Staten Island, another that was based sort of more in New York State and Pennsylvania. And I called them all. And the first one to call back was the one in Parsippany. And it was a guy who did not live terribly far from us. And so I took him. I didn't take the calls from the others. And he came around and he said, you should not have animals running around in here. And the other thing is the animals in the attic started picking up. So now I'm just totally freaked out. I just can't take it. Knowing that a flying squirrel was in my house before makes it even worse. And so this guy's like, look, you shouldn't have this problem. We're going to take care of it. It's this much money. It wasn't as much as I thought it would be, but hey, it's money, but I don't care. This is when you got me. My foot's in the door. Or should I say the chipmunk's foot's in the door. So we're going to get this taken care of. And so he's like, look, we can't go after chipmunks. We can't write the word chipmunk on an invoice. We can't write it on a plan. Chipmunks are apparently protected by some kind of, I don't know if it's federal or state, it's some kind of law. They're protected. You can't target them. They're called non-targeted animals, which means you can't go after them. But he said if they get in your house, that's a different story, at least to us. He goes, we're going to take care of your chipmunk problem. We're just never going to write it, okay? And I go, capiche, I got it. It's like the mob of chipmunks. And so he goes, we're going to set up like 50 traps in discrete locations around your home, and we're going to figure out what's going on here. Same thing with your attic. We're going to do that because I do see some activity happening up here. And I'm just like, man, I can't take this. What's going on? This is new this year. And so this guy, so we had to wait a bunch of days, and the guy did end up coming up Friday. He put traps everywhere. He jammed up the hole a little bit. He went in the attic and set up all this stuff. And initially, we never heard anything more from the basement. And we also found more of a hole that was more into the foundation. And so near where the spot I had seen the one that was filled, which was more up in the brick on the house. Excuse me. And so this guy filled up the hole. He put on some stuff that's really toxic. They said it's like skull and crossbones. They have to wear gloves when they put it, and they spray it down there. And what happens is apparently these chipmunks get it on their mane, and then when they go to clean each other, they lick it, and I believe it perishes their life, which is very sad, but I just don't want them coming in my house. So it is what it is. We put it in a place where it was literally them going into the house. So I'm trying to stop that, okay? I know all the tree huggers, which I was one, and I don't believe in it. I don't believe in doing this to animals just for no reason, but this is not no reason. This is them coming into our home. And so we close that up, put a rock in front of there. Haven't heard anything there. Knock on wood, cross your fingers. The attic, however, we heard a lot of action. Sounded like Noah's Ark up there. And the guy did say over these 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot of action because it's turning from hot to cold. The darkness is coming on. The animals are getting a little thrown off. They're going to start trying to find higher ground for the winter. And so we heard a lot of stuff, and we heard a lot of snaps and a lot of, you just don't want to know what's going on up there. I kept thinking I should put my kid's Nest Cam up there to see everything. But then I was like, I don't think I want to see anything. I would be so freaked out if I saw the activity, whatever those footsteps we're hearing is. But I'll tell you what, last few days there's been nothing. Knock on wood, we haven't heard anything at night. So this guy's going to come back on Friday, and we're going to see where we are with this engagement. He's going to see if there's any need to continue this process, because hopefully it's not more flying squirrels, because that would be more monetary engagements we'd have to go through. I'm willing to do it because I want to get rid of it, but it just feels like it's never going to end. Things always feel like they're never going to end until they do. Things always end. There's always a natural conclusion to things. But when you're in the midst of it and it feels like it's just not going to, it's the worst feeling. And that's where we've been. And then you don't get a lot of sleep. I mean, literally this weekend, my wife left on Saturday to go to this marching band event. And I was walking around the house. I put some kind of, Thomas the Train Engine on Hulu. I put it on the TV in the living room and let my son watch it. And I just went around the house tracking for noises. I started going outside on the weekend, hiding behind trees and watching where the chipmunks would go, and to see where they would what paths they run around the house, if there was anything I could pick up on where they're going into the house. And I didn't see a lot there. So that was really a positive. I also went around the house throwing mothballs around. They're apparently a deterrent to chipmunks. They don't like the smell of it, so they'll stay away from it. So I was putting it into every one of their burrowed holes. I got this. I feel like the guy in Caddyshack with the groundhog, but these guys are in my house. They're not on my golf course. I guess to each their own, that character, that was very important. But I'm just like, I was at my wit's end. And I think I'm coming out. As long as nothing continues to make noise. That's the only way out of this. Is if you have weeks and weeks and months of no activity, that's the only way you get back to feeling even. It's the only way you don't think your house is haunted anymore. It literally feels haunted by animals. So that's where we are with that. It's just unbelievable. I just don't want to be under attack by chipmunks. And I know they're cute animals. But when they're in your house, they're not cute. When they can't get out, they're desperate. They can do some damage. They can do enough damage where they put a hole in your ceiling. And I don't want it. I don't know how to get them out. What am I going to put them in a shoebox and walk them through the house? Ugh, I don't think so. I love where I live. I live in the woods, and the guy said that even from the pest control company. I do, but I shouldn't have them in my home. And the thing I agreed with him, he said you shouldn't hear them in your home either. So I said, we're signing you up now. I called the old one. I said, you guys are fired. I wish I could be that much of a man. I really didn't call and say you're fired. I said, when does my plan run out? And they said, it is run out. So I said, all right, I'm not going to re-up right now. And I'm like trying to come up with a reason to let them down nicely. Like I'm a tough guy until I have to call and break up. And then I'm like, well, I have this other company coming in because they promised that they're good with chipmunks. And you guys said you didn't do chipmunks. And then I made up this thing where I was like, because they're going to do the chipmunks, they said they're giving me a year for free on my normal pest control stuff. So I'm going to go with them. I don't know why I made this up. It's not like the company cares. They didn't care to help me with my problem anyway. So that's where we are. I just wanted to end a little bit, a segment on my football picks from the previous weekend. I'm trying to do a show on Periscope, and then I put it out. When I do it, I put the audio feed out on my Mix Minus, my Monday morning Mix Minus podcast, where I look prospectively at the picks coming up for the weekend. And I seek help from those on Periscope who happen to be watching for insights into how my picks sound and what they think. And it actually has influenced some of my opinions on which teams to pick. And I really want to win in this pick league I'm in because you can make some good money. You can make about $100 a week if you win. And you can make like north of $1,000 if you win the whole league by the end of the year. So it's something I really want to take seriously. I spend enough time listening, watching about analysis of football and then the games themselves that I shouldn't spend that much time and be such a loser with picks leagues. So I'm thinking when I do this podcast, I'm going to talk about the picks and how they ended up from the previous week. And then on my Periscope show / Monday Morning Mix Minus, I'll do the looking ahead at the picks to come. So not this week, but the week before, I actually went 7-4, which was really good. I still haven't won for the week, but I'm actually in 12th, and I'm only like 12 points behind the third place guy right now, or gal. I'm not sure who it is. So I'm actually doing pretty well so far this year. I'm definitely in the top quarter, I'd say, of the league, if not better. And my picks have been decent. I haven't had any real weeks where I've just been a no-show, really not good points. And so the way this pick league works is you make 10 picks. The Monday night game counts for 10 points. And then on a scale from 20 to 2, you pick against the spread which games you want to so the game you feel the best about, you should put at the 20 line because you're going to win 20 points if you pick correctly against the spread. The second in the list is going to be your 18 point. So if you win your top 2 picks, that's 38 points. And so, all the way down the line. So 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, you know what I mean? All the way down if you could do the math. So this past weekend, I went 6-5. So I was above 500 and I did decently, but I didn't really, I didn't do great with my top picks. So with the 20 line, I picked Baltimore to beat Cleveland, and Cleveland was plus 3.5 at home. I thought Baltimore would take care of Cleveland, that Cleveland wasn't ready to win a game like this, and Cleveland might be changing our perceptions of where they are as a team and how you pick for or against them. Maybe it's a matter of being at home. Maybe in general, they're just a really scrappy team. They have the offense to play with anybody, and they have the defense to play with anybody. So we'll need a few more weeks yet to figure out if that is completely true or if they're just getting some life because Baker Mayfield is their quarterback now for a few weeks, but he is a rookie. Then again, he did play a lot of years in college, but I lost that one. I did pick Baltimore, and that game ended up in a really kind of sad 12-9 game, real tough one. It's funny, you had a 12-9 game, and then you had a 13-12 game with Tennessee, Buffalo winning, and that was actually my 18 pick. So that was the one where I went with my second pick. So I lost my first and second pick because Tennessee was minus 3.5 in Buffalo. I just didn't think there was any way Tennessee wasn't going to win. But the problem here is Tennessee just doesn't score a lot of points. I think on the season they've scored 87 points and they've let up 86. So their margin is very small right there. Now they're not under like some teams, but that margin is tight. And I don't know if they're enough of an offensive team to put much stock into them if they're not an underdog. Now, they're going to be an underdog at home, I believe, this week. That's always very alluring, but don't know if I could go with them for a little bit. And it's funny because I did pick Buffalo in that week where they took care of, they actually beat, very demonstrably, they beat Minnesota. Minnesota was like a 17-point favorite, and Buffalo won by like 20 or something like that. So my 16 level pick was Kansas City. I did win on that one. They were minus 3.5, and they beat Jacksonville. It looked more respectable at 30-14, but they really destroyed Jacksonville. Kansas City has actually leveled off a little in their points. They're still getting up around 30, but it's not as prolific as they were early on, and that actually bodes well because maybe they have the level of team where they can win without having to win in a shootout. So that's actually a nice thing to see there. Next up, I had at my 14-point level, I had Minnesota. So Philly was a negative 3.5, or they were minus 3.5 at home. Minnesota actually won outright. I thought Minnesota would win outright. Minnesota was supposed to be a really good team this year, and so they had the aforementioned bad loss to Buffalo, and then they had a close loss in LA, which is a tough Thursday night. A couple days later after playing on Sunday. but it was like -7 in that game. And I thought that they would, or -6.5. That's what it was. So LA did just cover. But I thought forget the lines. I just thought because of the losses and where Minnesota's supposed to be and kind of the pressure on them as a team and what they have in the talent, I thought they would actually win this game. They would at least cover, but I thought they might win this game, and they did actually win and cover. My 12 level game, I picked Dallas because I thought giving 3.5. Houston was on -3.5, and I thought that 3.5 was a little steep. That was a little tough. I thought it might be about a 3-point game, and it did end up that. So Dallas didn't have to win, but they only lost by 3, so they did cover. They did cover there. It's amazing that Houston has 2 wins now. They really look left for dead at 0-3. They still could be, but they could be one of those teams you look up and they're 3-3 somehow after this weekend. My 10-point game. Let's see, who did I have here? So I won some of my moderate ones here. So I had at my 10-point game, the non-Monday night, I had Seattle, who were getting 7.5 points at home, even though it was the Rams. I still think Seattle's a tough place to play, and it just felt like with the balance of things that Seattle would have more of the chip on their shoulder, and LA would be maybe coasting a little. LA still won, but they were down 31-30 at the end there. They kicked a field goal. They won 33-31, but they still covered. I thought that was too many points to give a proud Seattle team at home, and they did cover there. The other 10-point game was New Orleans. They were -6.5 in the game where Drew Brees passed the passing record, went past Peyton Manning after he had previously passed Favre. I thought it would be much closer. I actually, you know what? I thought it was going to be 47-20, and it was 43-19. So I guess it wasn't that off. But that just was not the kind of game Washington was going to hang in there with. Maybe if it were Patrick Mahomes taking over for Alex Smith again, this time in Washington, it might be a little bit of a different story. I lost my 8-point game. We had San Francisco. They were -4.5, and Arizona actually won in San Francisco 28-18. There's kind of this debate a lot of times with football teams where, Kyle Shanahan took over San Francisco last year. They were awful until they got Jimmy Garoppolo in the trade. And then he basically went 5-0 down the stretch. And then you thought going into this season, they were going to carry that over and probably be somewhere north of 500, maybe 9-7, maybe 10-6 if they could really pull it out. And they weren't looking like they were headed that way early. They had some tough games, and then they lost Jimmy Garoppolo. So now you were stuck with the point of, is there pride in San Francisco? Is there enough of a chicken with the head cut off to the rest of the team where maybe the talent was pretty good and it wasn't being carried by Jimmy G? And so I really went with that angle. It was 4.5, which is a fair amount of points, but Arizona just straight out won 28-18. If they didn't have Josh Rosen as a starter, it might have come out, but maybe because they had Josh Rosen and San Francisco still has Beathard, I shouldn't have done that. I'll learn. You try to put it back into the feedback, but that was tough. My 6 line was scary because you had Green Bay, and you had Detroit getting at home getting 1.5. These are both hard teams to pick. It always feels like with Green Bay and Detroit that when you pick one, the opposite happens with both teams. So now these two teams are playing, and Detroit did actually end up winning the game 31-23. Now Mason Crosby missed like 12 or 13 points in kicks. So that's a big decider. But those kind of weird things play against you when you pick the team, like I did pick Green Bay. There's always something missing with Green Bay on the road, I feel like, as well, except if you're in the playoffs, where they can win a little more respectably. My 4 line, So let's see here. So it was my 6. My 4 line was Denver. I thought, hey, let's do the Jets were actually -1.5, so they were expected to actually win. And I thought Denver was in need of a win. They were already losing 2 in a row. This would be their 3rd straight loss. That if Denver was going to be a team and they still have the vestiges of a respectable defense to a degree, although maybe you'll come to find out they don't. Case Keenum got the money, and I never trust Case Keenum, but I thought Case Keenum against Sam Darnold and the rookie quarterback, that Denver would just find a way to keep it close and possibly win by maybe 3 or maybe more. I thought Denver could get to the rookie quarterback, and he got to them. He's learning. So that was a tough one to pick. That's why I picked them only at the 4 level. But I think Denver plays the Rams now. So it'll be the Case Keenum reunion with reunion where he was the starting quarterback before they gave it over to Goff in that Jeff Fisher year. So that's why I picked it at the 4 level, because I wasn't feeling that good about it anyway. And then my 2 level, I picked Cleveland, because Cleveland was getting 3.5. And I thought it would maybe be a 3-point game, so that a half point would come into play a lot. And they actually ended up winning by 3. They kept the score really low, 12-9. Just these weird scores. So actually, am I wrong here? No, I told you that. I already picked Baltimore with my 20. I was looking at someone else's line. I wish I could give myself so much credit. No, sorry. I feel dumb. My 2 line was actually the hometown New York Giants. I thought they were getting way too many. They were giving way too many points to Carolina, 7.5. I thought at the worst the Giants would lose by a touchdown. That half was a big deal, and the Giants were down a lot. They made some miscues. There were times where they didn't look good, but they came all the way back, and they were up. They were up 31-30 in the game, much like Seattle was up 31-30 in their game. And then it took a 63-yard field goal from Graham Gano to win that one, waiting for Gano. That was a tough one. That was one of those where like there's sort of victory and defeat, that idea. But the problem is when you give up too many other losses, you can't afford to have any more victories and defeats. The Giants had to win this game, and they didn't, so there were positives. But sometimes with a team that's maybe not good, and you don't know if a team's not good until the record shakes out at the end of the year. Like Bill Parcells said, your record is what you are. So it'll remain to be determined if they're a very bad team. But bad teams have a game like this where they come all the way back, and then the Giants will now play Philadelphia on Thursday night. Giants should win that game, even though it's not a far trip or a long trip for Philadelphia. It's still a short week where they have to travel. The Giants are sleeping in their own bed, and they should take care of that game. They should win it. Philadelphia is reeling a little bit, post-Super Bowl hangover. Giants need to win that game. But what you'll see from a bad team is the Giants could lose that like 27-10 or something, and then all of a sudden Philly has the win behind their back. So I hope I'm wrong. But that's the problem with the team that ends up being bad, is they show life and lose. And then when you're expecting them to carry that momentum, they just lose, and they have a debilitating loss. So we'll see. So that's where I am with that. Folks, thanks so much. It's been good talking with you again, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.